Hello, Greg.
Hi mate, how you doing? You alright?
Yeah, not too bad yourself.
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
So week 4,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, we've done best and worst team, and now Liverpool managers are now United managers.
yeah. I think it worked quite well last week in terms of what we've done. We're obviously different than the first 2 episodes, but I think watching it back flowed quite well.
It felt more relaxed, I think, because we had the time to actually go into detail about everyone
Yeah,
rather than sort of racing onto the next club.
yeah, and yeah, a couple of good anecdotes in there. I'm looking forward to doing United.
Yeah, yeah. Um, do we need to put the comment? Are the comments off?
Yeah, comments are off.
Perfect.
So there'll be no one slating you for anything that you say or anything like that.
It's just self-preservation. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all that request is about.
yeah, you're safe.
But how have you sort of found it? Because I mean, I obviously I did a little bit of research on sort of some of the Liverpool bosses and stuff in the build up. How have you found it? Sort of looking at United and what have you?
So it's been actually quite interesting, to be honest, because I've had to try and, like, obviously I'm a Liverpool fan. I don't like Manchester United, but it's
Really?
good to try and it's good to try and remain a little bit impartial in terms of what we're doing tonight. Certainly in terms of the research and also thinking of questions as well, like in terms of sort of the same format that we've done last week
Yeah.
for myself, asking a couple of questions that aren't really sort of me asking it just to put a needle in or anything like that, just to try and keep it mainly football based and impartial as well, and hopefully provoke some four provoking questions, which I've tried to put in. So I think I know which questions are going to be coming first in terms of if we go from worst to last. So
Yeah.
I'll get my first question ready because I don't think there's going to be any surprises.
Well, I think what's worth mentioning before I go into the list is with obviously through my lifetime, the managers that I'll be sort of ranking will be Sir Alec, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We made the decision not to include Ryan Giggs because I kind of felt that it was a bit unfair to put Ryan Giggs in there on the basis that he was only really there for 6 weeks or something at the end of the. Give it Giggsy till the end of the season. He was only there 6 weeks. So yes, Giggs isn't included in this, and also obviously he didn't have the chance to make sort of any signings, so I couldn't sort of take you through his best and worst signings. So, but yeah, worst manager. Obviously, it's going to be David Moyes. It was, I don't know. It was one of those. I think when he was announced as manager after Sir Alec had sort of retired, and obviously at that point, I think initially the favourite to get the job, I think everyone assumed it would be Jose that would get the job, and a lot of people sort of went back to there was a game that season where Madrid came to Old Trafford, and we I think the first leg had been 1-1 because it was the first time we'd played Cristiano Ronaldo since he'd left, and the first leg was 1-1. Ronaldo scored a brilliant header. I can't for the life of me think who it was that scored for United. I have a funny feeling it might have actually been, I want to say Danny Welbeck, but that might be wrong. But regardless, it was 1-1 after the first leg. Went into the second leg. We went 1-0 up, and it was the game. I don't know whether you remember it, where Nani got sent off for a ball sort of came over his shoulder, and he put his foot up to control it, and it might have actually been Arbeloa went in to get it, and Nani's studs went into Arbeloa's chest, and
I've got a memory. It was more or less on the halfway line.
Yeah. And he was shown a straight red card for it, and Madrid were obviously a good side then anyway, and but down to 10 men, backs against the wall. Modric came off the bench, scored the screamer of a goal and off the post, and then Ronaldo scored the winner. But that night, Mourinho was unbelievably humble, and after the game, he said, the best team lost. And I think a lot of people sort of looked back at that and thought, did Mourinho know at that point that because Ferguson had confided in certain individuals, did Mourinho know at that point that Ferguson was retiring? What did he see it as an audition? Did he think I've got to be respectful in order to be considered for the job, etc., etc.? And then obviously David Moyes sort of came out of relatively nowhere. And I understood the principle of why they wanted to bring him in, because he'd proven that he would stay at a club for a long amount of time. And also the story goes, how true it is, I don't know. But the story goes that Sir Bobby Charlton didn't want Mourinho to come in because he felt Mourinho will come here for 2 or 3 years and then he'll go, which isn't what the club's all about. And I think we'd almost been at that point, some of the decisions that were being made, I understood the principle of it, but I think Ferguson's longevity at United was based on the fact that he was the greatest manager ever. So it was very easy to keep him in the job for 26 years because he was unbelievable. And yeah, okay, there was a period at the start where it wasn't going so well for him, but I think the fact that he was there for so long was justified. It wasn't that we were sort of we waited out for 10, 15 years to see whether he would come good. He came good relatively quickly. So. And my concern with Moyes, and the thing is, I know it's easy to say these things in hindsight, but my genuine concerns at the time with Moyes was that he hadn't won anything. And I think, whilst he'd been at Everton, there had been 1 or 2 opportunities in domestic cups where they bottled it a little bit, and they really should have gone on. I'm not saying Everton should have ever won the Premier League. They were never in that level, but there was a few domestic cups that sort of went by, which probably shouldn't have. So that was my main concern with him. And then I think when he came in, he just made it utterly impossible for himself. He from the start, he got rid of all of Sir Alex's backroom staff, which was a huge mistake. And when Ollie came in, the first thing he did was go back out and try and bring those staff back in, or at least elements of that staff back in. So that was a huge mistake. There was all these sort of anecdotes coming out from, which have come out since, with obviously United players or ex-United players now, pundits and what have you, where he went in and he was showing them clips of Leon Osman and saying that's how you should be playing in the midfield. And there was clips of Phil Jagielka being played to Nemanja Vidic and Rio Ferdinand and saying that's how you should be defending. And with all due respect to those players, it's just you just sort of think what's going through your head there. What are you thinking? And the thing is that I know, because Patrice Evra said on Monday Night Football before that he felt the players let Moyes down, and that it was the players' fault. But I think any man going in to replace Sir Alex Ferguson, it was always probably going to be the impossible job. But I feel like he made the impossible job 10 times harder than what it would have been. I think he just made some massive mistakes. I think, obviously all those decisions. The first transfer window was an absolute disaster. It was it, and that's the thing I think about Sir Alex leaving that's overlooked is David Gill going as well, because he was superb in his role. And obviously that was Ed Woodward's first summer. We spent the summer chasing after players that were flirting with us in order to get contract extensions. I think we were chasing Fabregas for a huge chunk of the summer. Cristiano Ronaldo was being mentioned at the time as well. And Patrice Evra, again, has said that shortly before Sir Alex announced that he was retiring, he had a meeting with Patrice Evra to discuss Patrice Evra's contract to extend it. And Evra was saying to him, I've been here a few years now, maybe it's time to try something new. And Sir Alex Ferguson said to him, Cristiano's coming back. And because at that point, that's when sort of the fans were starting to boo Cristiano Ronaldo in Madrid, and he was having quite a difficult time over there. And he basically had a verbal, well, as per Patrice Evra, Sir Alex Ferguson basically had a verbal agreement with Cristiano Ronaldo to bring him back. Then obviously what transpired with Sir Alex transpired, and Ronaldo signed a new contract and the deal was off. But we went chasing after him. I think we were chasing after Toni Kroos, we were chasing after Thiago Alcantara. We're going after all these players that all either went to another club or got a new contract. And then obviously the final nail in the coffin for that summer was we had been linked with Fellaini. And the thing is with Fellaini is that, he became sort of a bit of a joke figure, I think, particularly in the early days of his United career. But at the time, I remember United fans actually feeling quite positive about the idea of Fellaini coming in. I remember him coming on and making his debut, and there were fans in the ground wearing like the Afro wigs, excited for him to come on. So there was genuine excitement about him coming in. But the whole way that deal was handled, there was a release clause in his contract that United allowed to expire, to then have to pay $5 million more for him literally a day later. So his release clause expired the day before deadline day, and then we made a panic bid on deadline day because all the other deals had fallen through and had to pay $5, $6, $7 million more than what we would have had to if we'd literally signed them the day before. So there was loads of mistakes made. Then, stuff like Wilfried Zaha, who obviously was Sir Alex Ferguson's last signing, who had all the promise in the world. And, obviously there's all sorts of stories about Zaha and Moyes and what went on there. But both have denied it, I think. But obviously there was a breakdown somewhere in that relationship, because there was no reason why Will Zaha wasn't good enough to be at United at that time. I remember him he played in the Charity Shield. He was brilliant. He put in a really good shift. And then sort of fell away, never sort of saw him again. And then I think it just got to a stage where it was just, I think obviously being around sort of sixth or seventh place for the years that followed wasn't out of the ordinary for United. But at that point, that was the champions of England and they were seventh, and it was unattainable. And obviously the final game, obviously that picture of the guy dressed as the Grim Reaper, stood behind them in the crowd and what have you. I think it was just a case of he was just massively out of his depth. I think it was. I understand why he didn't turn the job down. I mean, you're not going to turn the job down like that, especially when Sir Alex is sitting in your front room, saying to you, "I want you to replace me." I understand why he took it, and I'm sure if he was offered the opportunity again, he wouldn't change anything in that principle. He would take the job again. But I just think he made it incredibly difficult for himself. And then, similar to some of the managers that you were talking about that were sort of towards the bottom of your list, he just started saying strange things in press conferences. After the Man City game at the Manchester Derby, I think they beat us 3-0. He said that we have to aspire to be like Manchester City. I mean, the thing is that at the time, yeah, we were miles behind them, but it's just, it's like it's you can't say things like that.
Stuff like that.
It's just ridiculous. And the thing is, the games that he actually had the most success in, I look back, we did all right in Europe that year, and we were 2-0 down after the first leg to Olympiacos, and we came back and won 3-2. Obviously, we should never have been 2-0 down in the first place, but we came back and won 3-2. And then we had the tie against Bayern Munich, where at one stage, I think it only lasted 2 or 3 minutes, but at one stage in Munich, we were actually on the verge of going through. Evra scored an unbelievable goal, got us the away goal. But then we sort of, I think the pressure sort of got the better of them and capitulated quickly after. But I think the thing was, because Moyes had 10 years or so of Everton of experience of always being the underdog, I think in the games that we went into where we were expected to lose heavily, we actually tended to surprise people. Whereas the games where we were expected to go out and dominate, there was no plan. He didn't know how to approach those games, and we just lost our identity very quickly. The players clearly weren't buying into it, whether that's right or wrong. The players clearly weren't buying into it. and it was just a really, really sad time. It was, it was a huge shame, but I think, hand on heart, at the time that he was appointed, I didn't think he was the right man for the job. Obviously, got unequivocal support up until you couldn't support him anymore. But I didn't feel like he was the right man for the job at the time, and I think it was quite obvious that it was going to be a difficult few months for him.
Yeah, I think for early memories of when Moyes did take the job, it was sort of one of them. Everton fans for years have said, imagine what Moyes would be able to do with money. And that was the thing. Like, Moyes had worked on such a shoestring budget at Everton. Imagine what he'd be able to do with money. And it was sort of, okay, then let's see what he can do. And the thing, whenever I think of Moyes at United, the thing that instantly pops into my head is that the picture at Carrington.
Yeah. I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's instantly what comes to mind when I think of Moyes. Yeah. So the question I sort of had for Moyes was similar to what you asked myself last week to Hodgson. Was there a defining moment where the reality hit in terms of, no, he's not the man? Was there one sort of moment where you think, right, I've had enough?
I think we had a run of games. There, I have a funny feeling we had City and Liverpool in very close vicinity to each other at Old Trafford, and I have a funny feeling. I think possibly Liverpool actually came first, and we lost that 3-0. I mean, it could have been anything on the day. You absolutely battered us. And that was the day that you guys had the banner in the away end with David Moyes, football genius. And that was difficult. That was really tough because it was, we'd had difficult days at Old Trafford before then. Obviously, City had been there and won 6-1. Liverpool had been there and won 4-1. But it just felt like we are miles behind here. We have completely fallen off the edge of a cliff. And then I think City was very shortly after that. Obviously finished 3-0 as well from memory. And he made the comment of, we aspire to be like Man City. And I thought, there's no way. But any embers of support that he still had at that point, he lost it. It was gone. And I think to be honest with you, I think the Champions League kept him in the job because we were. I think I have a funny feeling we got to the quarterfinals. I think Olympiacos was around the 16, and we got to the quarterfinals against Bayern, and we were still in the tie after the first leg. I think we'd anticipated we'd get absolutely battered in the first leg, but we were still in the tie, and then obviously we pushed them relatively hard in the second leg, and I think that kept him there. But I think there was always a feeling that day when he went to Goodison, you thought, we're probably going to lose here, because we don't have an amazing record at Goodison, to be honest with you. Not, we do tend to make a mess of the games there. So I think there was a feeling if we lose here, this could be a potential defining moment. And I think the fact that obviously the Grim Reaper was in the crowd, because I think that was a Paddy Power plant, wasn't it? I think Paddy Power put someone in. So I think there was just that general feeling at a time, this can't go on much longer.
Yeah. Especially for a club like Manchester United to have sort of a joke figure running the club.
I think that was it. We were just that it was cruel in a way that he was sort of the butt of every joke at that time. But like I say, I think he didn't help himself, and I think what's been poor since is that he's never really been able to admit the mistakes that he made.
Yeah.
He just says, I should have had more time. And yeah, okay, you could have given him more time. Who knows what would have happened? But my gut instinct is it would never have turned around. I think he'd lost. Everyone had become so completely disenchanted with it by the point that he was gone. There was no way he was going to come back. And the fact that we were all so excited about Ryan Giggs, a guy who he was still playing at the time, about him taking charge, when in reality that shouldn't have been an exciting prospect, but we couldn't wait, for to give it Giggsy till the end of the season. So yeah. I think it was probably for me. I think it was probably the City one. I thought there's no way back for you after that.
Yeah. So best and worst signings.
So not it's easy in the sense that he didn't make many. So the first one that's officially on his record is a fullback called Guillermo Varela. But I've not included him in his signings just purely because he trialled at the club in May 2013. So Ferguson would have still technically been there, and then he was signed in the June. He only made 4 appearances for the club, and I think actually they were all made under Van Gaal. So I've not included him. So worst signing is a lad called Sadie Yanko, who was a fullback that they signed 700,000. I don't think he maybe made a couple of odd appearances in the League Cup, but largely not really involved. And then the other 2 to choose from for best was Fellaini or Mata. I've gone for Mata, just purely because obviously he's still there. He's still doing. I think when we signed Mata, he was a player that we absolutely did not need. I think it was just a signing that Moyes and Woodward needed to make in that January, just to sort of prove, we can do this. We can make a signing. But he has, to be fair, he's scored some important goals for us over the years. And I think with Fellaini, yeah, he had some horrendous performances in a United shirt, but he did also pop up with a few really important goals. Some of the trophies that we won over the years since Ferguson, Fellaini's actually played quite an important role in some of those. But yeah, I've gone for Mata as the as the best of Moyes' signings.
Yeah, fair choice. So after Moyes,
so next Louis van Gaal.
Yeah,
Louis van Gaal. So obviously came straight in after Moyes. Again, it's another one where I think when Van Gaal came in, there was so much excitement about his arrival. So obviously he was going to the World Cup with Holland. There was all this speculation, and I think from memory it was announced before the tournament started that Van Gaal was going to be coming in, and obviously Van Persie was the main man up top. Van Persie had a great tournament. I think that was the tournament where he scored that diving header, which was just unbelievable. And then he ran off and he high-fived Van Gaal on the touchline, and United fans are, thinking this is unbelievable. This is going to be absolutely brilliant. And I think, that summer they essentially made 2 seasons worth of signings. I think to make up for the mess that had gone before. So I think they brought in Rocco, Darmian, Herrera, Blind, Falcao, Di Maria, in that first summer. And again, it was one of those. Obviously, a lot of those names I've just given you turned out to be complete disasters. But at the time, it was very exciting, and it was sort of, this is perfect. So I think the reason he's so low is because there was so much disappointment as a result of the fact that it sort of fell apart. In preparation for this, it was painful. I watched the Leicester Leicester game that Van Gaal had. I think it was only about 3 or 4 games into the season, and it was the game that we were 3-1 up in, and then lost 5-3.
Yeah,
and Sky Sports have put it on sort of PL Retro, so I was able to watch it back. And that game, we started. We had De Gea in goal, obviously. Then we had the back 4 was Raphael, Johnny Evans, Tyler Blackett, and Marcus Rocco at left back. Then a midfield 3 of Daley Blind, Ander Herrera, Angel Di Maria, and then a front 3 of Rooney, Falcao, and Van Persie. So I mean, on paper, that's frightening, so when you watch the first sort of 50 minutes of that game, unbelievable. We some of the attacking football that was on display was incredible. Di Maria scored, I think, that got goal of the season, the one where he dinked it over Kasper Schmeichel. He played the 1-2 with Rooney. Falcao looked relatively lively. He'd only just come back, obviously, from his cruciate ligament. Van Persie scored that day as well. He was sort of showing signs of life because he'd had the tough start to the season that year. But he scored. He was looking great. And then there was a dodgy penalty decision. At 3-1, there was a dodgy penalty decision, and Leicester got back into it, and we just completely capitulated and obviously lost 5-3. But I think even so early, that was a defining moment for Van Gaal, because I think because so much attention had gone into the top end of the pitch, and we were almost the Harlem Globetrotters going forward, we completely ignored the defensively. So Ferdinand had gone that summer, Vidic had gone that summer, and we hadn't replaced them. And I think Van Gaal in that game realised we can't play all-out attacking football because we are so badly exposed at the back when we do it. So essentially, from that point onwards, the tactics changed, and we just weren't quite as free flowing as we had been. And I think, to be honest with you, I think if he'd persevered with that, yeah, there might have been a few games that would have gone that way. We might have gotten a couple of heavy defeats. You never know. But I think over time, as the confidence and the chemistry grew, and I think that's the thing to remember with that team. You know, that lineup that I said at the start. I think other than Evans, Raphael, De Gea, Rooney, and Van Persie. So you're talking about 6 of the starting 11 had never played together before. So it was a very new team. I think if he persevered with it a little bit more, we might have actually got reward out of it. But I think he saw it and he thought, because Leicester had only just come up to the Premier League, and he thought, we've just conceded 5 goals to these. You know, we have to shore it up somehow. And the tactics changed. Van Gaal, as time went on, became very, very moody in press conferences. He was constantly fighting with reporters. There was some strange decisions. His go-to substitution always seemed to be to change the fullbacks. If we were chasing a goal, he would swap the fullbacks. You know, he would bring on Darmian for Raphael, or he'd bring on Ashley Young for Rocco, or it would just be some weird decisions going on. So yeah, I think it was a shame. Obviously, he won the FA Cup, and that can. And I think the way it ended for Van Gaal wasn't fair. You know, the fact that the press were briefed that he'd been sacked before Van Gaal actually knew he'd been sacked. I think that was done really, really poorly. But I think out of all the managers, and I include Moyes in this, to be honest with you, out of all the managers, the style of football was horrendous to watch. I remember going to a game that Van Gaal was in charge of against Sheffield United. This was before Sheffield United obviously come up to the Premier League. FA Cup third round. And it took 72 minutes for United to have a shot on goal. It was honestly, it was awful. It was Memphis. I think he shot from about 30 yards out, and it went miles wide, but everyone stood up and cheered because it was like there's been a shot on goal, and that was the year we won the FA Cup actually. And Rooney scored the 90th minute penalty, got a dodgy penalty at the end. And you've heard that before. And Rooney scored, and we won 1-0 on the night. But the football was tough to watch. It was really, really difficult.
I think from what I remember of Van Gaal, I can't help but think, as you mentioned before, in terms of like press conferences and interviews, I think he described wanting your players to be more horny, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. He was sat with Juan Mata, and he said that he tells the players to be horny. Yeah.
It was just sort of like it became like a little bit of a like doing comedy routines, and then sort of flipped, and then be like the depth stare. In his press conferences. Now, I read an interview with Van Gaal in terms of preparation for this, and he was saying about that when he actually took the job, he'd mentioned to Woodward this would be his last job in football, that he'd made a promise to his mum he wanted to retire at 65, and that's where the contract had taken to. I think United actually wanted them to sign for another year, but he shortened it, so he knew it was going to be his last. That would take him to 65, and then obviously there's, as you mentioned before, there's the talk of the winning the FA Cup, and the press knowing he was sacked, but apparently that the deal for bringing in Jose would have been done a lot earlier, and he was. I think Van Gaal's quoted that he won the FA Cup with a noose round his neck. Working in the last season, so I think the easier question would be to ask, like, what do you think he was treated unfairly? But sort of flipping that on its head, with him already mentioning it was his last job, do you think his motivation was correct in taking the job itself? Now, what was it sort of, did he have the right motivations? Was he there to win trophies, or was it sort of his final paycheck?
I think he genuinely went there to go out on a high. I think obviously at that time, especially because you were still only a year removed from Sir Alec going. I think there was this. I think there was this idea that the next manager that comes in will take them back to the Sir Alex Ferguson days. And there was a period, Van Gaal had us top of the league at one point. I can't remember, I think it might have been his second season, but he had us on top of the league at one point. So no, I think the motivation was always there to win. I think the problem was that was really the first summer where there was a scattergun transfer policy, and they were just signing names, and there was no real structure to who they weren't signing, and that was evident in the sense that, you know, I think Smalling and Jones got injured early that season, and we didn't have, you know, Tyler Blackett was playing in central defence, we had Paddy McNair playing at central defence. We were so badly prepared on a defensive level that then came back to bite them that first season. So no, I think he did join with the right intentions. I think they just got the transfer strategy badly wrong, and they probably signed the wrong characters as well. At that point, I think they were signing players. I think probably more so, rather than Van Gaal, they were probably signing players who were signing for the paycheck rather than for the club. I think Van Gaal was probably there with the right intentions, but I think he signed the wrong players.
Yeah. So in terms of signings, then best and worst.
So worst signing for Van Gaal, I've gone with Di Maria. I think, you know, 60 million. I mean, there's a few that could have put in there, but I think 60 million. I think, like I say, he was signed for completely the wrong reasons. You know, PSG wanted him, but they couldn't afford them because of financial fair play. Madrid wanted rid of him, so it was sort of a clear run at him. He started really, really well. But then I think off the back of that Leicester game around that time, the story goes that Van Gaal said to him that he wanted them to stop dribbling as much in the games, and that he just wanted them to play simple, effective passes rather than trying to take players on, because he was playing them in the centre of the park. And Di Maria basically didn't want to do that. He didn't really adapt to that sort of idea. And yeah, okay, I can understand, you know, why he maybe wouldn't want to do that. But I still sort of feel like if you're a fantastic player, you do adapt to it, and you adapt your game. And, you know, at the end of the day, that it's the club that's paying your wages. And then he started getting injured, and there was question marks over the amount of injuries he was getting. Is he actually injured? And then Ashley Young ended up keeping him out the team by the end. And then I think the last game of the season that year when he left, it was at Hull or something. I think he only lasted about 14 minutes, and he came off with a hamstring injury. And there's a picture, I don't know whether you'll have seen it, but it was kind of the legacy of Di Maria's career at United, where he's walking off and he's walking past the bench, and Van Gaal is glaring at him, and Van Gaal basically said after that he didn't think that it was that much of an injury, and then he had a plane seat booked for him for the tour. So when the squad all met up and what have you, there was a seat on the plane for Di Maria, and Di Maria just didn't show up. And then 10 days later, he was in Paris signing for Paris Saint-Germain. So, yeah, he massively, regardless of whether it was his first choice or it wasn't, he massively let himself down. And that's why he got the reaction that he got last season when he came with Paris.
And then
best signing, I've gone for Ander Herrera.
Yeah,
I think, to be honest with you, the story goes that Moyes, when Moyes was in charge, a lot of the work for Herrera had already been done. So because he sort of Moyes had looked at him this summer before, but they hadn't made the bid. But I think he was Van Gaal's first signing. They triggered his release clause. But I just loved Herrera. I think over that period of time where we were really struggling, Ander Herrera was the one player of the new batch of players that had been brought in that you always knew would give you 100%. He never gave you less than 100%. He was quite a snidey player. He got on opposition players' nerves, obviously, as you know, with Gerrard falling straight into his trap at Anfield that game when he came on for 30 seconds and went straight back off again. I just think Herrera was just one of those players that I think he got it. He understood what it was to play for the club. He knew what the fans wanted. He understood the fans. He had a great connection with them. And I mean, the thing is, we haven't really missed them this season. We've not missed them massively, but I was gutted when he left because I think he was just a great player to have in the team. And I would sooner have Herrera in my squad than Paul Pogba.
Yeah, fair enough comment.
Yeah.
I think with Herrera, he was one of them. As I've just mentioned there, with him going, I'm sort of glad to see the back of him, just from a Liverpool's perspective, because I knew if we were playing United, he's an issue in the midfield. He does wind people up. He does get under people's skin, and I love players like that, but I hate them when they're at a club like yourself. At a rival club, you hate them. You're like, oh, he's like a little dog, like a Rottweiler. Like what we had in Mascherano, similar type player, gives 110%, gets under people's skin. And as you say, when the player does connect with the club and with the fans, then he will make himself a fan favourite.
Yeah, definitely. He was and a really good player as well. You know, he chipped in with a few goals and what have you. You know, just a reliable player to have in the team. So yeah, I would have him as his best signing.
Spot on. So I've sort of, when I was thinking which order these are going to be in, I knew that they'd be the bottom two. It's going to be interesting to see which way you go. So next,
who do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be Solskjaer.
Yeah. So as much as anything, I think Ollie's third just purely on the length of time that he's been there. I don't think it'll be too long until he's considered second, to be honest with you. I think that period where he came in, when Jose left, that period of however many games it was, 14, 15 games, was undoubtedly the best period that United have had in terms of feel-good factor, in terms of results, and just in terms of genuinely being excited about watching them that we've had since Sir Alec was there, without a shadow of a doubt. It was just a brilliant period of time. And then obviously, I think sort of once he got his contract, I think some of the players probably down tools a little bit. Again, there was obviously there was that drop off. But I mean, he's made mistakes. There's been some tough days. There's been some bad results. Obviously, you know, the result, the Goodison Park was horrendous last season, where he sort of had to go over and apologise on behalf of the players, which was a joke. You know, the players massively let him down that day. It was appalling. You know, and then even this season, you know, losing at home to Burnley and what have you. There's, you know, the Watford game, we lost it. We lost at Watford. So there's been some dodgy results, but I think by and large, I think we have an identity with him. You can see what he's trying to do. I think obviously we're going to come on to the signings. I don't think he has made a bad signing as of yet. I think the work he's done in the transfer market has been good. I think the promotion of the youngsters. So obviously, I know Jose brought Scott McTominay in, but I think McTominay's gone on to another level under Solskjaer. Rashford's improved under Solskjaer. There's no doubt about that. Greenwood's obviously come through and is playing really, really well under Solskjaer. And then Brandon Williams at left back looks like he's going to be a great player as well. So yeah, I think as much as anything, I think Jose's picked him because of obviously Jose's won trophies at United. Ollie's not quite there yet, and I don't know. Obviously, it depends on what happens with this season. I think we had a decent chance of winning the FA Cup this year. I think the draw was relatively favourable for us, so I think we had a decent chance of winning the FA Cup. But I think if you look at our season this year, semi-finals of the League Cup, we're still in with a good shout of getting into the Champions League spots. FA Cup, still in the FA Cup. What quarter final is it now? That's got to quarter final or semi final.
Yeah,
yeah, and then obviously the Europa League were as good as in the round of 16. Obviously won the first leg 5-0 in the round of 32. So it's been a pretty good season this year. When you think of all the negativity that's been around the club this season, when you actually take a step back, it's actually not been too bad. And I do believe this summer's a huge summer. I think we have to get it right this summer. We have to sign the right players, because I do genuinely believe, I don't think we'll mount a title challenge next season, but I think we should be going into next season thinking we need to be third as a minimum. We need to be in that top three, and I think if we make the right signings, then we've got a real chance of doing that.
Spot on, yeah. Because I think what you said there in terms of in the summer making the right signings, you look at the sort of say the best of the rest, if you like, from ourselves and City down. Leicester probably have overperformed this season.
Yeah.
I certainly can't see them being there. Well, it'll be incredible if they are there next season. Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, and yourselves have sort of had, Premier League wise, about in different seasons. So it is going to take one team to step up. So yeah, no. See what happens in the summer. Hopefully not. Hopefully Leicester is still someone I don't mind. Well, no, in terms of Ollie, so my question really for Ollie is sort of in terms of looking at United, sort of the long term, and what you said about Moyes is we have United have managers for the longevity of them.
Yeah.
If you don't get it right this summer and it does go wrong, can you see sort of a replacement being lined up? Now, I know he's already, like Pochettino was in the media for a long time, probably caused unnecessary pressure, probably didn't help with the results that were coming just previous to that. But then, if you remember correctly, you had quite a good December off the back of that once Pochettino being sacked.
Well, I think it was more January, because we had a run of games where we had Spurs and City back to back, and we beat them both. And that was Mourinho and Guardiola. So that came pretty much hot off of Pochettino. The Pochettino rumours really, because I think we got beat by Burnley early January. And then or it may be December, it might have been late December, and it was pretty much Pochettino's been lined up. This is going to happen, and then we beat Spurs and City back to back.
Yeah. So in terms of into next season, if he still isn't breaking into that top 4 or even top 3, can you see the likes of Zidane getting lined up, or do you think it would be best to accept that it what did it take Ferguson 4 years to win the league when he first came? I think he was on the brink of the sacking his third season. Sort of saying no, we need to stick with Ollie rather than having that sort of merry-go-round.
I think, provided it's not an absolute disaster, as in we're 8th, 9th, 10th, I think the club will stick with him. And I've always said this. I've never felt like he was going to get sacked. I've never picked up that sense. And I think, as much as anything, I think Sir Alex probably an ally for him in the boardroom at the minute as well. But I think, like I say, I think if you step back and you look at it, you look at the bigger picture. He's not made a bad signing yet. All the players that he's brought in have improved the squad in some way, shape, or form. The style of football is good. we're starting to score goals against teams. The defensive record is unbelievable. I didn't actually realise how good it was that we're the second best in Europe this season, which is unbelievable, really. So I think unless there's a complete disaster, I think they'll stick with it. And I think even looking at Liverpool, it took Klopp time.
Yeah.
And I don't, I know, yes, of course, he came from Dortmund and he'd won the league at Dortmund and what have you, and he had that pedigree. But, everyone's sort of saying, oh, well, Solskjaer got relegated. Klopp got relegated. And that doesn't get spoken about a lot, but he got relegated when he was at Mainz. And obviously,
You've done your research on that, haven't you?
Pardon?
You've done your research on that.
But that's the thing. It's true. He had that, but that club stuck with him, and he then went back up, and then he ended up at Dortmund. So I think sometimes you've just got to almost ride it out a little bit. And the reason United are in the mess that they're in is because they pinball between so many different managers and so many different strategies. And what's the plan? Do we sack Solskjaer, bring somebody else in, have them take the club in a completely different direction, and then you're back to square one again because you're having to start all over again? There's a new transfer policy. There's a new style of play that you have to get used to. I just think you have to go with someone and you have to stick with it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think from that as well, I think sometimes in the media especially, it can be a little bit unfair to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because every time that you do have a result, he's not a big name. Yeah. So it always is Solskjaer the right man for United. Yeah. Rather than if it was, I don't know, the likes of Ancelotti, if you like, at Everton, that's an absolutely fantastic appointment for Everton, no doubt about that. But still, he's had some indifference, shall we say.
Even Frank Lampard. I feel like Frank Lampard gets off with a lot of murder. Yeah, gets off with a lot of
bad as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, we beat them on the opening day. We stuffed them 4-0 on the opening day, and then they went on a great run, but they completely fell off a cliff. But no one really has anything to say about him in terms of his job security. And I think everyone falls back on, oh yeah, well, he's had the transfer ban and all the rest of it. But he's still got, if you look at the squad that he's got, it's not a bad squad.
No, not at all.
So yeah.
Just conscious of time. Yeah. And just 12 minutes left with two still to go. Be interesting then, Solskjaer's best and worst.
So worst signing is incredibly harsh because I don't think there has been a bad signing. The one that I've gone for is Dan James, just purely because I think when he came in, hit the ground running, was absolutely brilliant. I think scored 4 goals in his first 5 or 6 games. He's just kind of, but I think when he was signed, I don't think it was ever with the intention for him to play the amount of games that he's played this season. I think he's played there because of injuries and also because he sort of forced his way in at the start. He's kind of lost his way a little bit. He's a bit irrational at times with final decisions, sort of with a final ball and what have you. So that's the only reason that he's there, is just that his form has really sort of taken a bit of a nosedive compared to where it was at the start of the season. But it's still harsh.
Yeah, a honeymoon period at the start, if you like, and then so best
signing, I've gone with Harry Maguire purely because I think he's been there 6 months. He's already captain. I think he's really growing into the captaincy role. I think that defensive record speaks for itself. I think similar to Van Dijk, that he came in with all this pressure on his head with the price tag. I think it did weigh heavy on him in the first 2 or 3 months. He wasn't fantastic to begin with. He was a little bit shaky. It took a little bit of time for him to build up that partnership with Lindelof. But I think he's since he's been given the armband, particularly, he's growing into it massively.
Quite a shrewd decision to give him the armband, because I think he has actually pushed him on as a player in terms of his own confidence.
100%.
As well.
Yeah.
So next then, if there's only 2 left.
Yeah. So Jose's next. So like I say, Jose picks Ollie purely down to the trophies that he won. I think. I think the defining moment for Jose at United which potentially gets overlooked a little bit is when Zlatan left. And the reason I say that is because Zlatan obviously has unbelievable amounts of respect for Jose, and the players had unbelievable amounts of respect for Zlatan. And I think he worked as that bridge between players and manager. If you look when Zlatan was first there, Zlatan and Pogba were doing pretty much every post-match interview. Pogba was laughing and joking, and Pogba was playing well. Obviously, Zlatan was playing well. They had a great connection on the pitch. Everything seemed relatively rosy. And then when Zlatan left, it very quickly fell apart, and Pogba and Jose's relationship just seemed to completely disintegrate. But I think the success that he brought, obviously the League Cup win, winning the Europa League. I know, years gone by, United wouldn't accept a Europa League, but obviously that's what we had that year. When he took on the job, we were in the Europa League, and he made a very calculated decision to say, we're going to put all our efforts into that and sort of sacrifice the league, and we did well, and we beat. We were talking about this the other day, weren't we? He beat what turned out to be an incredibly good Ajax team. In the Europa
and you best route into the Champions League as well.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I think you go back to the quote that he said when we finished second in the league, that it was his greatest achievement as a manager. At the time, I know people were laughing. At the time, I sort of thought, I can understand why he's saying it. He's maybe pushing it a little bit, but I can understand why he's saying it. I think that summer, after we finished second, that was a summer which I would probably put at the same level as this summer for Ollie, in that it was so important. We had to go out and we had to buy 2 or 3 brilliant players to improve that team and close the gap. That summer we signed Lee Grant, Diogo Dalot, and Fred, and that was it. Mourinho wanted a centre-back. He wanted Maguire. The board said he wasn't getting them for whatever reason. Well, we don't know. But basically, I think the board just decided we're not having this. And they should have just sacked him that summer, because it was so obvious where it was going. Mourinho was going into self-destruct mode. He was hammering. He was constantly making comments. I remember after a loss at West Ham at the London Stadium, Issa Diop, the West Ham centre-back, had been unbelievable. And Mourinho said something about, massive well done to the West Ham scouts for spotting Issa Diop. They've done an unbelievable job there. It would be great to have scouts like that. And he was just making inflammatory comments. You knew where it was going to go. I don't actually buy into that the fans had turned on Mourinho. I think there was an element of the fans had enough of him. I think more from the negative point of view, that everything he had to say was negative towards the end. But I don't think, and when Mourinho, whenever he was there, and I've been in the ground when he's been there with Sky Sports since, he gets a hero's welcome every time. And equally, when he came back with Spurs, the fans were fine with him. Obviously, once the game started, he was the opposition manager, but the fans applauded him down the touchline on arrival and when he left. So there's no ill feeling with Jose whatsoever. I think it was just, for whatever reason, I think the board let him down massively, and then it was but equally, I mean, you could say he shouldn't have reacted in the way that he did, but it was just one of those where the board shouldn't have done what they did, and equally Mourinho shouldn't have reacted in the way that he did. But I think it was always going to end the way that it then did.
That it did, yeah. And that is sort of my question on Mourinho, in terms of what we've already spoke about, in terms of Manchester United having a manager in place for that a long time, being able to build something. Do you actually think Jose was sort of the right person actually to take the Manchester United job? Do you think that was a wise decision? Because when Mourinho's now gone to Spurs, I think it's only ever going to end one way. Yeah. I think that's who Mourinho is. He's only there for 2 or 3 years, and he will hit that self-destruct button. Yeah. And it's just when it comes, and it usually comes in that 3rd season. So in terms of a project that Manchester United are looking at, do you ever actually think that was the right position, or that you were going to have 2 good years, and there was he would always inevitably bring success in, but it was always going to end in a sacking or the big catch in the headlines, walking out like he did at Inter Milan, and you'd be back to square one.
I think with Jose, I think the time to appoint him was when Sir Alec retired. I think that's when we should have brought him in, because you would have got those 2 years of him bridging the gap between Sir Alec leaving and the club going into the next stage, and then you could have potentially given it to Giggs, because Giggs could have had 2 years of coaching under Mourinho and he would have been ready to take it. I think that was the time to bring in Mourinho. I think by the time they brought him in, he served his purpose. He did what, he won the trophies and whatever. He brought a bit of success back to the club. But I think it was probably 2 or 3 years too late.
Yeah. Best and worst for Mourinho?
Best is Zlatan. I think that season is probably as close to a season in terms of a player's impact that we've seen since Cristiano Ronaldo was there. He was just unbelievable. It was just one of those players that, I suppose, a bit like Suarez for you guys, but doesn't matter how badly you're playing. If he gets the ball 30 yards out, anything can happen, and he can win the game on his own. So I've put Zlatan in as his best signing. His worst signing, I struggled with this a little bit. I'll probably go with Sanchez in the sense that it was just I was swithering between Sanchez and Mkhitaryan, because Mkhitaryan was a huge letdown in the end, but I think probably Sanchez, on the basis that we're still hemorrhaging money from that deal because we're still paying his wages, even though he's not even at the club. So I think probably the Sanchez one is the, and I think it was that was the one that was made to pacify him for not getting a centre back, and it just made the situation even worse.
Didn't work. So we've only got a couple of minutes left, but there would have been no prizes for guessing who's in top spot.
Yeah. So Sir Alec, to be honest with you, I've not got much to say. I think it's all very self-explanatory as to why Sir Alec. I think the one thing that I would say about him is you recently tagged me on Facebook, one of those Facebook challenges of the 5 football players that made you fall in love. Reality is, it was actually Sir Alec that made me fall in love with football. Gave me some of the happiest days I can remember growing up watching football. Some of the comebacks, the last-minute winners, the trophies that we won, the title races, the Champions League wins, unbelievable. And now more so than ever, unbelievably grateful to have lived in that time, because you don't know if it's going to come back. So that's it. Yeah, that's as big a compliment as I can really pay him.
And I think for what I said the other day in terms of when I was talking about Liverpool, certainly when I was growing up in terms of who I knew that I supported what was once a great club.
Yeah.
I think that sort of where a bit of rivalry, a bit of jealousy came in. As I was growing up, United were that club.
Yeah.
United were doing it, and you obviously grew up watching that. The question for Sir Alex, sort of always been bandied about in the media, this sort of question was, do you think he knew it was the right time to step away? Or I think one thing that you mentioned before in terms of the players who actually left that summer, the summer after, under Van Gaal, were approaching an age. Moyes was given quite an age squad. Do you think that he would have struggled that next season? That you certainly might not have been as bad as you were under Moyes, but certainly wouldn't have been retaining the league title?
I think we probably would have been okay. I think obviously his wife's sister passed away, and I think that's what led him to make the decision that he wanted to spend more time with his wife. I would like to think that it was a late decision that was made purely from the point of view that the forward planning was so bad because we didn't seem to have a successor in mind. And I think even the little anecdotes where Cristiano Ronaldo had been lined up and what have you makes you think, no, he was planning to be there. So my gut instinct on it is that it was probably a last minute decision. But I think the club was left horrifically exposed for not seemingly having put any forward planning in place.
Yeah. Best and worst?
Best, Cristiano. Just easy. just unbelievable. Absolutely blessed to have seen a player like that in a United shirt. Just outrageously good. Worst, I'd probably just put his baby. And the reason is it was just such an uncharacteristic signing. Ferguson had never seen him before. I don't know if it was just an attempt to try and pull off another Rudely interrupted there.
Time limits.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was just that he was trying to pull off another Cristiano, but there was a story actually that I read about Bebe where he'd been in training and Sir Alex Ferguson had said to him, "You'd be better to cut your hair." Because I don't know what his hairstyle was, but he said you'd be better to cut your hair. The baby went home and cut his hair, and the next day, Bebe was saying he walked past him 3 or 4 times. Sir Alex Ferguson had no idea who he was, like didn't even realise that he was one of his own players. So I think it was just a really uncharacteristic signing. 7.5 million, so it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was just a strange one. And I think whenever you think of flop Man United signings, a lot of people will immediately think Bebe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would put him down as probably the worst.
Yeah. Spot on then. So there was no prize in the end for who was going to be top and who was going to be bottom there. But yeah, good to hear your insight and your thoughts on them.
Cool. Yeah. No. Thank you. Pleasure as always.
No problem. Now the tricky part is what we're going to do next week.
Should we start talking about Everton?
No.
No, we need to have a think about that. Maybe we could do something like how should we finish the Premier League season?
Yeah. Could we'll think of something.
We'll think of something. My answer will be so long as it results in Liverpool not being allowed to lift the trophy.
Well, do you know what? I think I'm not sure if you know this, but I think it was 1965. We won the champion or the European Cup quarter final on the flip of a coin.
Really?
Against Cologne, yeah. I think so. I think it went to 3. We'd had played them home and away, and I think it must have been drawn. I think then they had a replay as well. That was a draw, so we beat Cologne on the flip of a coin, heads or tails. So they could just heads or tails the 97 games. I think we'd still win. Mathematically, we'd still win.
And you've definitely done your research on that.
Right,
mate. Spot on. Okay.
Spot on.
Speak to you soon. Cheers.